Greg Grunberg, Snap Wexley from Heroes, and Commander Finnegan of Yorktown from a little thing called Star Trek, and you are kneeling before the pod.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Kneel Before Pod. I'm your host Craig McKenzie, and our time has come to talk about Star Wars. We enter this world by talking about the 2015 smash hit, The Force Awakens. Does it entirely hold up and deserve all the love it gets? Find out what we think. Also, thanks to Greg Grunberg for his endorsement, where he gets his hero's character name wrong, but he does use the character he played in this film, so it's very appropriate. Enjoy our discussion that really does head to a galaxy far, far away. With me, I have Angus.
Hello.
Natalie.
Present.
This has become a register, yes.
Yeah.
Euler.
Aaron.
Hello.
And Chris.
Hello.
So, before we start, light side or dark side?
Light.
Okay. Anybody else?
Light side.
Well, I'm going to be controversial and go dark side.
Now there can only be one more.
Yeah. Pressure's on, Chris.
Oh, I'm going to go light side as well. You know,
Right.
just as...
Oh, thanks.
Oh man, everyone against me.
Thanks for asking me.
What are you, Natalie?
I think that I'd be a bad person, but then I'd become a good person, but then ultimately betray everyone. I'm gonna go dark side.
So
That means
pull back on yourself again.
What?
unredeemed. You're going to be unredeemed.
I don't know. I just think that they're hotter if they're bad.
Hey, okay. So, the internet seems to think that Star Wars is kind of a big deal. I don't know if we all agree with that or not, so I guess we'll go around the table, this virtual table, and talk about what Star Wars means to all of us. Angus, do you want to kick us off?
No thanks. Yeah, okay, I will. Star Wars. It's always been there. Like so many of these things we seem to be talking about on podcasts. I can't remember living a life without Star Wars. Yeah. It's kind of ubiquitous, isn't it? And it's grown into this massive phenomenon where the pressure seems to be on now to kind of carry on the saga from what began as probably quite an indie sort of sci-fi adventure into now a massive marketing hulk.
Yeah. So, you're a fan then?
I am a fan.
Cool. Aaron, what's your thoughts on Star Wars?
I was wondering, is there actually a reasonable argument for it not being a big thing? Surely everybody's going to say that it is. But
Yeah.
if I had to pick the old Star Wars, Star Trek thing, I would actually choose Star Wars if I could only keep one. Because I do remember it from way back being a kid, my first introduction to proper adventure stories, I guess, really. So definitely a fan.
Cool. Chris, do you want to go next?
Yeah, definitely a fan of Star Wars. I mean, to me, it always sort of reminds me of when my mum would go out on a Friday night, me and my sister would be left at home with Dad, and he'd end up picking out one of the Star Wars DVDs or Indiana Jones or something like that to watch. So, yeah, Star Wars was a big sort of childhood thing, and then obviously...
DVDs, you couldn't have been that young then.
I know,
Oh, no,
like,
no.
are you a child?
DVDs, videos, all that would come out. Yeah.
All my Star Wars early experiences on VHS, that dead format.
Now, you're really old if it's on Betamax.
Or Laserdisc.
Laserdisc, that's the one.
To me, Star Wars was something that was always on at Christmas. It was one of those films. You always watched at least one or two of them.
Natalie, what's your connection to the Star Wars universe?
Like personally,
Yeah.
my dad's Darth Vader.
Okay. That's quite a revelation.
Yeah, I thought everyone knew about it. So
Imagine meeting him for the first time. It was a tough sell.
Star Wars, I don't know, I feel like you're being quite personal with it. It's a movie that I enjoy watching, and that's kind of almost it.
You think of it as one movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
See,
So
damn it, I'm too suggestible. Like, I wasn't really listening and I just said yeah.
So you're not a super fan like other people might be.
I really enjoy watching it and I, like, totally love it.
There's got to be a difference, though, I guess, then between what Natalie thinks of it and some of us who remember it from long ago, because I'm probably that much older. Because I definitely had, when I watched this film, a feeling of coming home, of a welcome past, which I admit could easily have coloured my experience in a really positive way.
I just remember having the tassels.
Yeah, so early for a Tazos reference.
Oh man, starters we mean to go on.
Yeah, but those were brilliant.
I
They
think
came in like
it's-
their own special
I
box.
think it's so. I mean, like computer games and cartoons and movies and music, and it's just everywhere. That I agree with Aaron that when you just kind of dive back into that universe again, no matter how derivative it is, it just feels like going home.
Well, you guys are so deep right
Bit
now.
like Han Solo gets back on the Falcon. I mean, that might be a spoiler.
For me, Star Wars is something that's been around forever. I've seen it. I remember I used to love The Empire Strikes Back because for some reason I like when films have water in them. So I always liked seeing Luke crash land on Dagobah.
Like, what's your world?
For some reason, I would always ask my parents to put the one on with the water, and they knew it meant Empire Strikes Back.
Did you ever watch that movie where that couple get left in like the middle of the ocean? Love it.
Possibly.
Yeah.
How about Kevin Costner's Waterworld?
Lot
No.
of
Oh,
water
I
in
think
it.
it's called like Deep Blue or something like that. What's it called? I'll Google it right now.
When I was younger, that's what I liked. But that's one of my earliest Star Wars memories for some reason. I was always more of a Star Trek guy. That doesn't mean I don't like Star Wars. You know, you can like one and also like the other. It's allowed. There is no war between the two.
I never got why people compared them.
Because they both have star in the title. That's about the only thing.
Oh, yeah.
I never noticed that.
So that's me. I've always loved Star Wars in some way. Played some of the video games. Had the toys. And yeah, it sticks with you.
That's a big difference, actually. I never ever had any Star Trek toys. That was never a thing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Nobody even mentioned it, but the Star Wars toys were everywhere.
I had Star Trek micro machines. They were just the ships, but they were micro machines.
I have no memory of them whatsoever, actually.
And some action figures too.
It wasn't until Big Bang Theory put on jokes about those toys that I even knew that Star Trek actually had figurines.
Yeah, I don't think it's really known for them, but Star Wars, for whatever reason, is. So yeah.
Well, isn't it really known because of the whole George Lucas deal and
Yeah,
the thinking that that's how he made all his money?
yeah, merchandising. Yeah.
Yep.
That's how loads of people make money, though. That's how loads of like movies and franchises and stuff.
Yeah, but he kind of
Like-
set the model for it.
Did he?
Whereas,
By claiming
Whereas
all
Star
that
Trek never made
merchandising.
money.
Huh?
Star Trek never made money, so it was.
Craig, the name of the movie is Open Water.
I will bear that in mind.
Yeah, it's got water in it, so I think you'd enjoy it.
Duly noted. Thank you.
In fact, yeah. Never mind.
So, yes, I mean, Star Wars was a lot of things to a lot of people at one point, and then we had the prequels, which are problematic for some. But then Disney bought them, and there was a lot of reaction to that. So how did everybody sort of react when Disney took them over? I, for one, was quite excited because no more George Lucas making Star Wars films. You know, people with the ability to make films could make them instead.
I don't
Seems a
know.
little brutally harsh, given that he did make 3 films that people did like.
But then 3 that people didn't.
Some
No,
people
but that
did.
means He's still 3 for 3 in that case. Then.
And he didn't make 2 of those either. It was other directors that directed Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Well, it's his vision. He can do what he wants.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's any good though.
I was quite happy because it meant we were going to see more Star Wars films. You know what I mean? That was kind of my reaction to it. Is I get to see Star Wars again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they hire J.J. Abrams, and everyone's heart sinks.
Why?
Said the Star Trek fan.
Why did your heart sink?
I don't know. I just think he's overrated, but that'll come up later, I suppose.
I think people need to stop having ideas of what they think is going to happen and just wait to see how it turns out.
I think he wants to do a good job, and he was such a fanboy himself that it was probably almost an impossible task for him to take on, because he felt like he wouldn't want to let everyone down, or taking on the mantle of such a sort of cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. So, Angus, what was your reaction to Disney buying it out? Seems like it was quite positive.
Yeah, I've got a similar feeling, because knowing that they were going to just monetize it, even more so, and just pump out film after film, maybe isn't the best way of thinking about it. But then, yes, greedily you do get, well, for the last 2 years we'll have had a Star Wars film at Christmas time to go and see in the cinema.
Ooh. Don't Google J.J. Abrams and Chewie, because there's like some weird picture of them sharing like a Twizzler.
Okay.
It looks really romantic and
So,
gross.
from your comments, Natalie, I think you couldn't care less who was making it, really, or who owned it.
Well, I did the whole like bandwagon thing. Like when Disney bought the rights, I was a bit like, "What, Disney? Why do they have to own everything?" But then when we saw the movie, I thought it was really, really good. Really enjoyed it. So I kind of couldn't really care less of who was making it because I enjoyed it.
Okay. And Aaron, how was your thoughts when it happened?
I didn't really know what to think at all, actually, because if somebody had have asked me much earlier on, before even the films 1, 2, and 3 came out, what a Disney Star Wars film would have been like, I would have assumed it would have been something with a child star and something like Jar Jar Binks in it. So when they didn't produce that and somebody else did, I didn't know what to think, because that slot had already been filled. So I think I was pleasantly surprised when it turns out that what I thought Disney would do turned out to be something completely different.
See, I always thought they would probably at least attempt to make a good job of it, because they've done right by the Marvel franchise by and large since they purchased that. So it seems like they kind of leave things alone once they put people in place to make them. I mean, I don't know how much interference goes on in the background, but based on Marvel stuff, it suggests that there's maybe a lot, but I think they probably have an agreed standard that they want to meet.
Well, they can certainly afford the quality of directors and writers and so on, and that's, I don't want to challenge anything anybody really did there at a fundamental level.
Yeah. So it brings us on to the first Disney entry, Force Awakens. What were people's initial thoughts, without spoiling anything for this year-old film that everybody has seen according to the box office numbers?
Loved it. I loved seeing it, and even though the reaction afterwards and kind of reflecting on what I'd just seen and it seeming quite a bit rehashy, as I've said previously, I just enjoyed being back there and hearing that lightsaber sound swishing around. Just puts you right back into it, and even though I could kind of put up with this entry, because it was like the beginning of a whole new saga almost. So it made me really look forward to what was to come.
I thought it was great at sort of pulling you back into the universe, and I was just really excited to see a Star Wars film again. I thought they did a really good job. There's lots of sort of duplication to things that you've seen before, but I think when you watch it, it sort of brushes over you a little bit. You don't notice it as much.
I did watch it a second time and wondered if I would get that feeling of coming home again with it and whether that had coloured me too much. But I don't think it did, because I did enjoy it second time round, possibly just as much as the first. And I noticed that the possibility of this repeat of old plots, I think it only really kicks off hard in the third, if you will. If you're watching from the start, actually, it doesn't do that. It does give you a lot of new stuff. And I also thought that they managed to get in one of these things that I reckon is so difficult at the moment, is to do a different, strong female lead in Rey. I think these days there's a stereotype and most people go with it, and they may have walked the line a little bit with it, but actually did a better job than a lot of stuff that's on TV. So all in all, I think I really enjoyed it for what it was, not even just because it was a bit of a homecoming. Which something, by the way, the films 1, 2, and 3 never ever made me feel. At no point did I think this is the Star Wars I remember of my youth. They were totally new, something different, and I always felt a bit at odds with them. I wanted to like them, but that was what it is. It was a want. With this one, with The Force Awakens, I did just like it right from the start, and I didn't have to put any effort in, and that was noticeably good.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it while I was watching it. I thought the set pieces were really well done, and I liked the characters for the most part. And the duplication that Chris mentioned kind of knocked me a bit. I kind of couldn't really see past that, and subsequent viewings have just kind of made it worse, almost to the point where it's not something I'm in a hurry to revisit in the same way that I would with, say, The Empire Strikes Back or even Return of the Jedi. Certainly A New Hope I'll revisit hundreds of times because it's just good fun. But I think this one is largely what Star Wars needed to be in order to come back after so long away and so much kind of uncertainty after the prequels. So from that point of view, it does exactly what it needs to. But I guess I was just hoping for a bit more from it.
What? I absolutely loved it. We landed in Portugal the day that it opened here, and the first thing that we did was go to a cinema where I'd already pre-booked my tickets because I knew that we wanted to go and see it like as soon as we possibly could, and we both, like, me and Gus, just absolutely loved it. We thought it was brilliant, and then when we came back, we went and saw it again in cinema, and I was the same as Aaron. I was a bit worried that maybe I'd just been, caught up in the moment of and the excitement of it all, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm really enjoying the new characters, and I know it's a spoiler-free zone, but there was definitely a bit where I still hoped the outcome would change, and it didn't, and I was heartbroken.
Cool.
But yeah, there we go.
So, on that note, should we move into the spoiler side of the Force?
Yes.
Be tempted by the spoiler side of the Force.
Are you going to do like some sort of like lightsaber noises when you edit this?
Well, we'll see.
I'd recommend a TIE fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll just throw all the noises in and see what sticks. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah.
That's my vision of the future's problem.
Okay.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
No. It's not true. That's impossible.
Now that we're in spoiler territory, start off with the new characters. So Rey is a good place to start since she is our mouthpiece for the new side of the universe. What did everybody think of Rey?
A mouthpiece?
Yeah. She,
Why are you calling her a mouthpiece?
She reacts to everything, talks about everything. It's she's new to it all. So
okay.
Our new protagonist. How about that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a better word.
Our new hope.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, personally, I really liked her. I thought she was an interesting character. She kind of had that naivety and vulnerability and so on that kind of reminded me of Luke Skywalker, but not without aping Luke Skywalker. I don't agree with all the allegations that she's a Mary Sue who's just brilliant at everything. I think she's just clearly learned how to survive over the years, and that translates to a lot of these skills. Daisy Ridley was a good choice. She played her well. It's a good character and feels new and different slightly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really liked her. And for all those reasons, I think she was a great female lead. I think her interplay with Finn and her reactions to kind of him attempting to save her when really she was saving him was great. She's already been in some pretty iconic settings, seeing her kind of exploring the Star Destroyer and sitting out in the desert next to the downed AT-AT Walker. You know, they're already kind of, those images already feel like they're up there with the iconic images from the original trilogy to me. So I think that is, you know, I think the way that they've gone about kind of entwining her into the saga feels like, you know, she feels like a really original and interesting part of it already.
I think Daisy Ridley did a fantastic job in the role. A really good. I'm trying to think of the right word to say, but yeah, I think as a protagonist was absolutely brilliant. It was a really good introduction, and they've not really, by the end of the film, you don't know that much more about her than you knew at the beginning. So there's lots to explore there in future films, I think. You know, it's still a well-rounded character. You still get her motivations and things, but there's a lot still to find out there.
No, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of mystery around her and around a few of the things, really.
I thought that they gave a really good balance between somebody who was capable, and I say that thing about creating a strong female lead, as it were. I think I think it's really difficult, but they made somebody who was capable of surviving, who did have skills, but wasn't dominating, wasn't always destroying everybody in the fight, wasn't always in charge, and didn't seem too weighted towards being better than anybody else or worse than anybody else. I think they did actually manage to create a good set of new characters who did have strengths and flaws all at the same time. And one thing that was most interesting was her age is quite a difficult one to place for me, because she was very capable and very good at being by herself. But then there are so many points in it where she is quite childlike, especially that scene at the end where she's desperately wanting Luke to take his lightsaber back. I mean, she just looked like she's about to burst into tears.
Yeah, like I said, she's definitely a bit naive. She doesn't really know how the galaxy works and how things happened, or she's very kind of ignorant of history as well.
No, she's not. You can't say she's ignorant of the history when they're talking about, like, she knows what the ship is, she knows all the stories and the legends of like Han Solo and stuff. Like, you can't say that she doesn't know anything at all. Like, she does. She's got like a great knowledge of all of it, which is why I think when she's trying to like talk about the old stories and the legends, and she's like, oh my god, you're like whoever, blah blah blah, that's really exciting, because that's what we're like, oh my god, Han Solo's back, and she's the same. She's like, oh my god, you're you, and we're like, yes. So you can't say that she doesn't have that. She definitely does.
I think naivety possibly is the wrong word. She certainly had an innocence about her, in that she just wanted everything to work out right, and she was living through the myth. That is a certain innocence, but it's not unknowing of what was going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think ignorance might have been the wrong word, but there's a lot of gaps in her knowledge, because she's been stuck on this backwater planet for so long.
Why? Because she has like 12 parsecs instead of whatever it's supposed to be, or something.
She says 14.
Jesus Christ. Whatever. Like, who gives a crap?
I mean,
Again, Angus gets there before I can. I'm willing to speed up.
Yeah.
When they get to the bit where Han's talking about possibly offering her a job as second mate on the Falcon, I always think, why didn't that just happen? Why didn't she just join up with Han and Chewie and we get a movie where they go on adventures like that? Obviously, it can't happen that way. But whenever I see it and that happens, I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see that adventure.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant when I wanted something more from it. I mean, the characters were good enough, and I found the plot was a bit kind of familiar, a bit too familiar for me. But we'll get on to that, I suppose. Her partner in crime throughout much of the film is Finn. Finn is very kind of tortured because he's been trained to be a killer, but luckily he didn't get to kill anybody before he decided it wasn't for him. Because in his first mission he decides to desert, which I found quite interesting. Just all these stormtroopers going about their day and he's looking on in horror, even behind his mask.
Yeah, like you never see them like other than with their uniforms on, and so you think of them as being like these robots or like not even human. And so I loved that when he takes like his like the helmet off and stuff, and you're like, there's like a guy in there and stuff. I was like, I don't know, I was just so excited. I was so excited when I saw that happening.
And he doesn't look like some New Zealand guy.
He's not a Jango Fett clone.
No, definitely not. I liked Finn though. I thought I liked how he was kind of a coward and constantly trying to get out of the way, which is reminiscent-ish of Han Solo in A New Hope, when he when he just wants to get away from everything and stay away from everything and only provide for himself. And Finn's a bit like that in the beginning, but he also has a kind of streak of goodness in him, which he kind of applies to wanting to help Rey and get BB-8 to the rebellion so that they can move on with stuff. But ultimately, he just wants out of there, which I found quite interesting. It's just the idea of this kind of cowardly character who's kind of caught up in these events while being unable to get away from them.
I like the humour that he brought to it as well. Whenever he was kind of getting overexcited by situations, I think it could have been, or maybe it seemed a bit too on the nose or a bit too out of the setting, but I actually really liked how it worked and how he kind of played off against Rey and Han. Didn't, I suppose, there's been comedy throughout Star Wars, and his brand is slightly different, but it seemed to fit him and it seemed to fit in quite well in the film, I thought.
Yeah, I liked how incredulous he would be all the time, when Rey says, I need to get back to Jakku, and he says, why does everybody want to go back to Jakku? He just can't understand why nobody wants to run.
Or when he tells Han that they'll just use the Force, and Han's like, that's not how the Force works.
Yeah, interesting coming from Han, that statement as well.
Yeah.
I thought John Boyega did a really good job sort of treading that comedy line, because it can be really treacherous sometimes if you end up with a character that's far too much of a comic relief in a sci-fi like Star Wars. It's very difficult because you can end up with this sort of Jar Jar Binks side of too much ridiculousness in it. But I think it was written really, really well, and another sort of interesting character.
Yeah,
Jar Jar Binks gets such a hard rep, by the way.
Deservedly so.
That's just his species, though.
You think he's indicative of all Gungans?
Yeah.
That doesn't. No,
I think that's
none of the other
Gunganist.
Gungans are annoying as said.
Well, Boss Nass is quite annoying.
Yeah. Also doesn't look like any of the other Gungans, but that's weird. But yeah, no more Jar Jar.
Like everybody, I think I liked him for all those reasons, but I wondered as well if he was indicative of a certain extra grittiness in the plot that I wonder. I can't decide if it was in the old films or not, because I know that characters get killed in Star Wars, and there is the gruesome death of being eaten by creatures, but is it somehow made child-friendly by you not seeing too much gore, but then all of a sudden this character's introduction has a bloody hand on his helmet, and that really stood out for me. I really noticed that seemed really quite brutal, because then the character himself sees it and is quite shocked by, oh my God, this is the blood of my friend. And that again, that's one of the things that will have kept him out of his I don't know, training as a stormtrooper. So I like the fact that that character was capable of, or the actor, if you will, was capable of going back and forth, as Chris says, between this horrible, brutal reality that was, but also still having that innocence of, do you know what? No, I'm the hero. I'm going to go and save this person, my friend, because I need to. And it didn't ever feel out of place, those two different sides of it. Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting choice to have him decide to go against the First Order on his very first mission, because, and I think they probably did that because they didn't want to have a hero character be a murderous servant of the Empire or the First Order for, a long time. Because it may have been a bit weird to have him. He's been on 10 missions and killed 100 people or something like that. But now
it's not unreasonable for that to be the point where you wake up, though, because everything up to that point is training. Yeah. You've been going through the motions. You've been doing guard duty. He says himself he pulled sanitation detail on one of his missions. This is the first time he's been asked to do something that's actually combat. Oh, and by the way, the first order you get is execute all the villagers. It's just, if you were going to wake up, that seems like a perfectly reasonable time to do it. So they didn't really have to push the boundaries of what was real to get that, I don't think.
I wondered about that, because when you're talking about the blood down the mask and stuff, like the helmet, I wondered if maybe there was another one who had maybe woken up as well and didn't want to be a part of it, because I thought that doing that sort of reaching out to another is very unlike stormtrooper behaviour. So I thought it was very odd that that even happened.
Well, did you find that any parts of this film then to be in some way slightly grittier, slightly more mature than any of the previous films? Because I'm wondering if I did. I think I did, but I'm not sure.
I think so. And whenever you see stormtroopers getting blasted or smashed with Ewok rocks and things in the past, they may as well just be robots, because they just sort of, fly off or, fall over and they're kind of just cannon fodder. But,
Wilhelm scream and we all laugh.
Yeah, just fly off speeders and things. But to see them, bleeding and it's all kind of visceral. And,
it makes them much more real as characters and as people. Has to be honest.
They also hit a target now and again.
They've improved their aim.
I mean, I think it's just a lot darker when you think before, when you were seeing, like you say, stormtroopers sort of get knocked over and things. You're thinking, oh well, it's a clone stormtrooper. But when you think this is as a child taken from a family that they'll never know and raised to be a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
I think it's more brutal when you think of it as that, rather than, it was a clone that was always brought up to be a stormtrooper. It never had a family. It was grown in a lab to become a stormtrooper with a terrible aim.
Yeah.
Where when you think that, the stormtroopers that you see now are brainwashed, that have been brought up to do that, but snatched from their family.
Yeah, because that definitely seemed to be sort of George Lucas's approach to making it family friendly. Would be have these clones or have droid armies, so that you could be wiping out whole armies of people, but they were all robots or clones, so it wasn't as bad as seeing individuals bleeding on each other on the battlefield.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's never explicitly stated in the original trilogy, but all the kind of outside media says that stormtroopers are essentially just people that have enlisted in the same way that we might enlist in the army, because the Empire is the legitimate government, and stormtroopers are kind of on guard duty and things like that. So they're not bad people as such; they're just following orders.
Right.
But that's what the people after the fact, though, as you've just said, have put in so they could add their own angle, make it more real, do what they wanted to it. But if I work just by the canon of the films, I don't get that, and I don't. Again, I never want to think that I have to do my homework to realize what it actually is going on. So in my mind, that doesn't exist. They weren't just these nice people. That's just all the that's just all the people that have come after it, and not necessarily even true.
Yeah, and I think as a kid watching the original trilogy, the stormtroopers were scary, even though they couldn't hit a thing and they banged their head on Death Star doors and things. They were still scary. They had scary masks, and they kind of, they captured people and imprisoned people and were present when people were getting tortured and things. So I think they weren't quite as comical as we kind of think of them now.
Mm.
I think they were definitely presented more personable in this one, especially when Kylo Ren is having like a total meltdown in one scene, and the stormtroopers come around the corner, and then they're like, "Nope." I thought that was brilliant. I thought, I think so much thought has gone into the iconic stormtroopers and their place in the new movies, and I think they're definitely headed in a much better direction. It's really,
see that humor as well that you just mentioned. That's very, to me, that's very adult humor. That is the boss throwing a wobbly in the other room and you not wanting to go in and be your trouble, which is, and you said it as well with the other ones. I think Jar Jar Binks, even though we said we never bring him up again, it's all childish humor. Even the robots, they say that they can be safely killed. The robots' humor was very comic and slapstick too. So it really feels like they've tried to come home with this new film by making it something that adults would go to the cinema to watch, which was the original one. And so was it? I think Angus, you said it was the second three. Was it Lucas aiming directly at the kids market? Because if it was, that might have been the summary of the whole of the mistake of the first film.
I think it was that he made the first, or his ideas for the first three were almost like he was making films for himself, and then by the time he had kids and made the next three, it was for them, and it was, I suppose by the time he was putting Ewoks in, it was probably, leaning more towards selling toys than it was about making a sort of adventure film.
And that just blew up in the prequels. Mm-hmm. With all these random side characters so they could make action figures. Do you think Finn's family will come into it at any point?
No, they've probably been vaporized.
Because
I don't know where it would fit in.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
Maybe his spin-off film.
He'll find a new family with the Resistance.
Yeah.
The Resistance lives on.
Exactly.
I mean, hopefully not, because when you think of it, the galaxy is so large that the chances of them ever meeting or ever doing, it's the one thing about Star Wars that sort of confuses me when you think about the size of the actual galaxy, and there's all these coincidences where, oh, that's my dad over there, and that's everyone is only part of sort of two families in the whole film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, it ends up being lazy as well with the plotting. It's how can we make it so this character has a difficult choice? I know, we'll put their mother in danger, and it's like, oh my god, I've seen this again so many times. It's just boring. It's lazy. There are better ways to threaten the character, I think, without relying on such tropes.
And how did this amazing coincidence happen? It's the will of the Force. That's it. Yeah, I hope I don't think we necessarily need to see Finn's family, but it's something they could bring up in comics or a spin-off film if they ever decided to do one, I suppose. I don't think it has a place in the actual saga as such, because he is, broadly speaking, a bit of a side character, as in he's not a Skywalker, he's not connected to that, so he's kind of there, but not a huge part of it. Excuse me.
Who?
Finn.
You don't think he's part of it?
No, he's part of it, but he's not like a significant part of it.
Well, isn't he going to be though? Because you've already compared him to having the Han Solo position, who also was not a Skywalker and so on. Since Solo marries into the family, if you will, why couldn't Finn do that? He's surely, therefore, a front character.
Yeah, and Han was only going to be, he was only shipping Luke and Obi-Wan to begin with, and then never really intended to get caught up in the rebellion. And then, the rest is history.
Yeah, and Harrison Ford kept trying to get him killed, and it wasn't happening.
Can I just say, I didn't know that, right? And when I was watching this, I didn't know what was about to happen, and I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. Out of the new characters, there's our resident X-Wing pilot, Poe Dameron, who is my personal favourite of the new characters. I just think
Is it because he's hot?
I think Oscar Isaac's a really good character, except when he's playing Apocalypse in X-Men movies. So he's a brilliant actor, and I think the character is just... he's one of those... He doesn't fit into any of the kind of moulds that you might have, so he doesn't really embody a Han Solo type or anything else. He's just kind of who he is, and he's just good fun, and he gets on well with Finn. Their interactions are some of the best scenes in the film. Like the bit where he's about to escape, and Finn says, I'm breaking you out because it's the right thing to do, and he immediately says, you need a pilot, don't you? And it's like, yeah, I need a pilot.
Other than having a few gags, though, he doesn't really do anything, does he? He really is just a secondary character.
Doesn't do much. In fact, he fills the Wedge Antilles role, I think.
There you go.
He has a bit more to do than Wedge did, though.
I didn't get
Not
that.
so much.
Yeah, he blows up Death Star 3.0.
He pulls the trigger on the joystick. That's all he does. He doesn't get a big discussion. He doesn't get any real scene by himself where he interacts with other people. He does what the plot needs him to do, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think he's a tiny role.
Yeah, he doesn't have he made a big impression on me for whatever reason.
I think he's going to end up a bit more of a double act with Finn in the future. I mean, you were asking what Finn's going to be doing later on. I think it's going to be him and Poe Dameron going off and doing something. You're going to have Rey and Chewbacca off doing something else.
Yeah, there was an interview with John Boyega where he asks if Finn and Poe might be in a relationship in future films, and he says only in Oscar Isaac's imagination. So I don't know. I think people are, to use the word, shipping. They're shipping them.
Well, they did share a tender embrace.
They did, and exchanged jackets.
Yeah,
which is a big deal. Yeah, I liked Poe. He was probably my favourite. Yeah, definitely my favourite of the new characters. And I can't fully explain why.
It must be because he's hot, then.
What about BB-8?
BB-8, yes. I like BB-8. He's got a new take on the droid personality.
Here's the question of the hour, then. Which is more cute, R2-D2 or BB-8?
BB-8.
R2.
BB-8.
I wouldn't call R2-D2 cute. He's kind of
Exactly.
old. Oh, R2-D2 is so cute. There is the only time I have ever been in a cinema and the entire female audience went, to a robot is with R2-D2. He definitely is cute.
No.
He's kind of an ass, though, isn't he?
Yeah, that's what makes him cute.
No, that's not so cute. BB-8 is cute. R2-D2 is funny, but BB-8 is cute.
I think
BB-8 have a thing that R2-D2 has, because R2-D2 has the do-do-do, which is his signature noise.
No,
Did BB-8 have a signature noise?
Yeah, it was there's some sort of thing. I did forget that I totally love when R2-D2 is having a bit of a fit, and he goes what is it he does? He goes when you throw him in the lava when you're playing Lego. What's it what's that noise he makes?
He makes an R2-D2 squeal.
Wailing noise that he makes.
Yeah.
It's like that or something. I don't know. Gus is going to find it and we're going to listen to it. So.
I'll edit it in later.
Why? Gus is on it right now. Right now.
Oh, I can't find it.
I think BB-8 is cuter, but I would prefer to have R2-D2.
I'd rather have BB-8. BB-8 can negotiate landscapes better.
And he can do a thumbs up.
Oh, that was good.
That is true. The thumbs up was awesome. That still makes me laugh every time I see it.
Yeah, they managed to give BB-8 quite a lot of personality.
That's the one.
I'll edit
One
over
more
that.
time with feeling. I'll play it again. Oh, I love it. That's the best bit of R2-D2.
Oh no, it's not. The best bit is his signature noise. Have you got that one as well? His little questioning noise.
Let I can probably find it.
Oh, you have to play that as well. You can't just play the screen.
I feel like R2 is, he's more of an ass, so he's more of an adult character. Whereas BB-8 feels like, droids can be children. He's more of a child. There's something kind of cutesy and innocent about him, and the way people talk to him as well is kind of like, yeah, well done, that kind of stuff.
Do you think they limited the amount of C-3PO in this film because he's got slight Jar Jar potential?
It's because we wouldn't recognise him because of the red arm.
It's the red arm. Right. But I think C-3PO fits into the old films. But I don't know if he would fit quite as well into this new Star Wars. So I think it's probably good that they didn't have him around so much.
Well, he only really has one scene, and it's kind of played as a tension breaker between Han and Leia. There's kind of there's a lot they're not saying to each other, and then he just interrupts as he does.
I think it's a really awkward character to sort of have around. He doesn't have... as much as he's a bit of a fun character, he doesn't serve much of a purpose. If you're going on a mission to invade a base and...
you don't take your protocol droid.
Sort of the last person that you would take with you, at least with R2-D2. It will help you break into doors, but, C-3PO, I think you can just sort of block the corridor with.
Yeah.
He's like his best pals.
I think just for story purposes, he was kind of left on the sidelines in this one.
Yeah, there wasn't really any translating needing done, so he wasn't needed.
No delegations coming to visit.
A lot of the times in the past, it was just it was accidentally there. It wasn't particularly like they went, "Oh, we need him.
Yeah,
let's take that guy." It was more, "Oh, he just happens to be here in the background of the shot."
Yeah.
They're supposed to sit or stand near diplomatic functions and translate between. That's what protocol droids tend to be for, but you don't really see them do a lot of that.
He's certainly retired now, though. It's just like his pals.
Maybe they could just wipe his memory again and then start all over. Yeah. A character I found quite interesting was Maz. Mostly because it's the first time we've seen a kind of Force-sensitive character without them being a Jedi or a Sith. So
is Maz the one with like the big massive glasses who looks a bit like that person from like The Incredibles, but also a bit like a slug?
You mean Orange Yoda?
Yeah.
Who loves Orange Yoda?
Kayla loves Orange Yoda.
Wow, that's a dated joke.
No, it's not.
No, it's not dated. It's very current.
Oh God!
Thank you, that one person.
But yeah, I can find that kind of interesting because before it's kind of this all or nothing. They're either a Jedi or a Sith, whereas we haven't really seen anybody that understands this sort of stuff without being part of one of those disciplines.
Maybe that's where the extra stuff that's been built around these films over time has been able to provide some form of positive influence on it, because that's quite a new thing from the books and so on, isn't it?
I don't know if it's new. It's probably kicked about since they did side media, since they started doing side media. But I know that Rebels did it this season early on. But it's the first time in the main series of films that you see that sort of stuff, at least have that sort of stuff confirmed.
What sort of stuff?
Someone being able to understand how the Force works and use it to an extent without actually being a Jedi or a Sith.
But you don't know who she is.
But she says she's not a Jedi, but she knows the Force.
Well, she might not be a Jedi yet. No, she's like ancient, right? So,
she's Orange Yoda.
I see when I first saw her, I was like, "Oh, what gimmicky crap is this?" And I was a bit put off. I thought she was a bit, I don't know. It took me a little bit out of the illusion of the movie because I just kept on thinking, "Whoa, to do this scene, it must be so weird." Because either somebody had loads of things suckered to their face and was like in a green suit, or they're literally talking to like an empty space. And I was like, "Oh, that's really strange."
Ping pong ball on a stick.
But then
it was a motion capture, I think, on set.
Well, either or, it still sort of took me out of it a wee bit, and it was only really when that scene where she goes down to find Rey, having found the saber and stuff, that I was about like, yeah, you're alright. So, I mean, she was okay, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of like super, like, things not really existing in the movies.
I think get a hold of that lightsaber. I mean, that was gone.
I mean, the thing is, she's an interesting character, but I have the feeling that it was mainly introduced so that you can drop back in the young Han Solo movie that's coming up. I mean, I have the feeling that's the next time you'll see that character. And whether they've sort of introduced it in this film so that when they go back and they do it in the young Han Solo film, it sort of has context.
Yeah, I never thought
they've known each other for a long time. They've sort of introduced each other. You know, I do think that's when you're next going to see that character. Now, whether that's the only reason they sort of tied it in, or if there's a greater reason later on, I don't know. But
yeah, she could be. It never occurred to me she might turn up in the Han Solo film, and I think the next two films in this trilogy could probably happen without her, because all she really existed to do in this film was get Rey on the path to understanding her Jedi-ness. Yeah, how did she get that lightsaber? That thing was lost.
Yeah, and the hand.
Where's the hand?
Oh, maybe it was like in the treasure chest. We just didn't see it. Or in like a glass case, like it's like, you know, like when you go to like a creepy church and they've got like really like gross fisty bones belonging to saints and stuff.
Could
maybe
be
like that.
The relic of Luke Skywalker's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
Luke Skywalker? Oh yeah, he's got metal hand.
He does.
Oh my god, have you even seen Star Wars?
So, out of the new characters, our main villain, I suppose, for this one at least, is Kylo Ren. And I didn't much like him. I think... Yeah, I just thought he was definitely supposed to be a discount Darth Vader, but he felt like a really bad discount Darth Vader for me. He just felt all whiny and emo and...
Yeah. I loved him!
Love Kylo Ren. For those reasons, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I thought he was great. And, can I interrupt you, Craig?
Go ahead.
So,
you don't usually ask permission.
Oh, sorry. I loved him. I loved that he is so different to like previous baddies. Like he normally, like all the previous bad guys have been quite level-headed in a sense that they trying to think of words now. Damn it. Yeah, so he's quite unpredictable, whereas I felt like a lot of the previous bad people have been quite set in their ways, and they're quite predictable in how they're going to respond to certain things. And I find him really exciting as a character because he has that that naivety, and he's quite immature, and he's found himself with a lot of power in a position that he obviously wants, but you can tell that he shouldn't maybe be in it. But I really like him. I thought he was great. How can you not like him as a character?
For pretty much the reasons you like him. I think
it makes it more exciting to watch because it's like you can see with him where development's going to happen over the movies, like with him in it. Like before, it's been quite static, I felt, with the bad guys. They've just been the bad guys, but here I think, we might see we're definitely going to see him mature, and I thought he was really exciting.
I think he's one of the most interesting characters in the film. I think he's one of the most original characters in the film. And I think that you've said that there's kind of surrogates for all the original trilogy. You've got Rey equals Luke, Finn equals Han, and so on. Whereas they've made a good decision making the baddie in this not just a Vader clone, because Vader's like the ultimate screen badass. He was scary and just in control, just kind of marched around the place, throwing people around, choking people out. But in this, you've got this, petulant child who just throws tantrums and wrecks the place. And I think for that reason, it's like, it's good to see something different. And as you've said, I hope that we do see him kind of mature into another ultimate badass, which is probably what we wanted to see from Anakin Skywalker in the prequel trilogy, but we never really got the proper kind of evolution into evil Darth Vader.
I think that's definitely the key, because he is actually, for the first time, an investigation into a dark side apprentice. This is what an apprentice of the dark side would actually be like. I don't think we've ever seen that before. It's all the light side apprentices.
Mm-hmm. I don't quite like that he wants to be evil, but keeps getting pulled in by his bright thoughts. It's interesting in theory. I don't think they pull it off all that well, but maybe it will be handled better in future films.
I think it'll develop. I mean, when you first see him at the beginning in the village, I sort of looked and thought, oh no, we've got to discount Darth Vader. But then obviously after, they slowly break it apart until you find out, oh my God, he is just an absolute tantrum and a hissy fit for, losing things. He's not good at his job. He keeps making all these decisions that are just completely wrong. Well, we go after the droid. No, it's all right. I've got her. It's fine. Then it all goes wrong. It's an interesting character to see go on, and I quite like him in the role. I think it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Obviously, the big sort of build up in the film is to Han's death, and I'm sort of doing that, and he does take you to the point where you think, oh, we're going to get redemption. He's going to turn around now. It's all going to go. He's going to go back with them, back to the base, and and then it's like, oh, right, okay, he hasn't done that. Okay, I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought, they're going to do the whole redemption thing really, really quick, and then nope, no, they're not. It's so it's no, I'm going to be interested to see where this goes. My only thing with him was his accent, which seemed to change like the wind. And obviously when he's got the mask on, he sounds completely different. But even when he's got the mask off, the accent goes all over the place.
That's the dark side for you.
The dark side.
Irish villain.
I thought the reveal that he's Han Solo's son was kind of clumsy, because you had Snoke, explaining to Kylo Ren that Han Solo was his father when, he knows. I actually think the reveal would have been better if it had happened on the walkway. Where if Han said "the face of my son," then I think it would have been more shocking that way, because they don't really do anything with it once they reveal it anyway.
I think that would have been too similar to the sort of Darth Vader reveal on a gantry, hanging precariously over a ledge, if he had sort of turned around and went, "I'm your son," or "You're my son." I think it would have been, we're all right. Later on we're going to talk about some of the plot similarities, but I think that would have been too much. That would have been
too far.
It would have been really close, and it does sort of eat into what I was saying earlier on about this sort of galaxy. It's meant to be space. How come everyone is one of these sort of, we're going to have, they're all solos, and then we've got all the Skywalkers over here, and how, it does seem awfully convenient that all these things are tied in.
I don't think they could have actually left the reveal that late either, because it would have required several scenes between Han and Leia mysteriously talking about a third person who was definitely around all the time, but for some reason they're trying not to say about too loud, and it just would have been awful dialogue. So they had to bring it out that this guy was their son, because just so they could give those characters something to actually talk about meaningfully.
Bring it out with the awful dialogue of "this droid is in the hands of your father, Han Solo."
Well, one line of exposition I think is much more forgivable than 3 in-depth scenes of high emotion talking about somebody whose name we cannot mention. That would have been much worse.
I mean, you could have had Snoke sort of saying it's on the Millennium Falcon, and then the reveal being when they're on the planet and Leia lands there, he could say, "I've seen our son." Yeah. That reveal, I think, rather than sort of Snoke clumsily doing it from his massive throne.
That would be a better. Yeah.
I was really disappointed that Snoke was a giant hologram, which suggests that he's maybe not a giant. I really wanted to be a giant. That would have been
maybe
cool.
He's even bigger than that. And the hologram's actually tiny.
Yeah.
Maybe.
When they finally get around to killing him, I would like for him to be behind a little red curtain operating levers in the corner, Wizard of Oz style.
There was no force. It was just me. It's me lifting things with these now obvious-looking strings. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I think for me, the weakest person in the bad guy set, if you will, there was actually General Hux, because I don't feel that the character could be as young as he was. The discount Vader, as you want to call him, had a reason to be that young. He was still on his path to some form of power, and there aren't necessarily many Jedi out there, so if you want an apprentice, you have to take the guy that's around. But would you really employ somebody who, what was he? Was he in his 30s as the general of your entire order? I think he never had any power, I think, in his speeches when he was speaking over the entire First Order army. He didn't have any gravitas like the older actors. Who's the one I'm really thinking of, who stood on the bridge of the Death Star, a really famous actor now, I can't think. Just the age alone gave you the feeling of someone who could really run a military.
Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing, yeah. But this guy just had to be approximately the same age as Ren, I think, in order to be a believable equivalent and rival to him. But I think I would have rather have seen the power of the dark side go up against a different power of the gravitas of a good military leader. I think that probably would have been stronger.
Yeah,
maybe he's Tarkin's grandson or something. His nepotism is why he's where he is.
Fine, make him a major, but make him the leader of everything. No, it didn't work.
I mean, I would have thought he would have been maybe the boss of the base or the captain of the Star Destroyer at the beginning, but I never thought that's the guy that's running the entire army. You know,
he's more of a discount Tarkin than Kylo Ren is a discount Vader, I think.
Absolutely.
And I think that in Star Wars, there's like a kind of tension between Vader and Tarkin, and you never really know who's properly in charge, and sometimes Vader seems subordinate to Tarkin. So I think it would have
Vader, release him.
I think it would have been better in this one if, as Aaron has said, there was a sort of older figure who it would have really brought out the kind of brat in Kylo Ren to be, you know, subordinate to this older general who he clearly would feel that he was more powerful than.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some work to do there. I don't know what role he will have in future films. Presumably just still in charge of the entire First Order. But who knows?
We know from a line of dialogue that he's escaped.
Yes. So we have some returning faces. We've talked a lot about Han Solo, but I liked his role in this film, how he took on the Obi-Wan role rather than, you know, being the skeptic, I suppose. So he talks about the Force because he believes in it now, and he's there to be a mentor for Rey and Finn as well to an extent. So he's there to kind of get them on their way and tell them how things work. And I thought that was an interesting role for him. And it's good that Harrison Ford actually gave a crap, because he normally doesn't when he does films. These days anyway.
I don't know if it's because it was he knew it was going to be his final one, so he went, okay, I'll just give this the welcome back treatment, and then... Yeah.
I'll be in the film, but you will kill me, right?
Yeah, you promise I won't need to do another one. I thought when he arrived and did the sort of Chewie we're home thing, I think that was brilliant. That's when you sort of properly felt like you were back into Star Wars again with both of them on the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, and then he's snarking seconds later, just like the old days.
Yeah.
When he's talking about the Force and it all being true, though, that's proper chills right there.
Yeah, biggest skeptic ever is now on board with it all. But how could he deny it after what he's seen?
Yeah, great.
So yeah, it's a good swan song for Han Solo as a character, I think. He gets a lot to do, and he's very active. And
did you see him running, though?
Running?
Yeah,
like an old
when he
man.
was like trying to run, and I was like, oh my god.
Well, you know, it broke his leg and crashed airplanes and things. So,
No, he's like so cute.
gets to fire a bowcaster for the first time.
He does. And I'm surprised that's the first time he's used it.
Yeah, me too. But,
I mean, has Chewie just been really protective of it all this time, and he's finally let him have a shot?
Could be.
Yeah.
And Chewie was kind of his old self as well. He's very kind of playful and quite cheeky in his own way.
He looked very well groomed.
I think there could have been a bit more Chewie. Although he does get to, howl at seeing Han.
He gets shot on the arm.
Yeah, and then gets told that he was very brave later on.
I know, it's so cute. It's so cute. His cute face. Oh.
Yeah, and it's interesting how, obviously they brought back Peter Mayhew to play Chewie, but he doesn't play him in every scene.
What? That's weird.
Well, they got another younger, taller guy who can run, whereas Peter Mayhew not so good with the running because he's an old man.
Oh, that's so sad.
But it's interesting how I couldn't tell, because Chewie has a particular way of conducting himself. He sort of hunches when he runs and things. And
it might just be because he's in a costume.
Yeah, but I don't think just anybody could put on that costume and you believe that they're Chewie, because he has his physicality is very kind of distinctive. And I think the younger actor managed to really pull that off.
No, the stand-in did a really good job of that. But the chances are that he had to practice for ages, and they made sure that he got it just right before they let him do it.
Before they let him loose. I'm still pretty sad that Han Solo's is dead, by the way. I can't form sentences today. I'm sure you've noticed. I know, I'm actually pretty gutted. I'm just going back to that because I don't know what else we're talking about.
You probably get him in flashbacks and things in future films. I still think there's going to be little bits of Han Solo out there. Obviously, he's not going to be throughout the film. But
you've never seen a flashback in a main series Star Wars film.
Maybe they don't exist.
Yeah,
at least he got a massive cremation when Starkiller Base blew up.
Yeah.
Oh. Did anyone else think of a bad lip reading when Chewie was wailing?
No.
Right, well, thanks, Craig. I hope you know what I'm talking about.
I know what bad lip reading is, yeah.
But you know the song, though, right?
Yeah.
Good.
But I didn't know at the time, and I didn't think of it at the time. So.
Right, well, I'm going to send it to you so that you can remember.
I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it's not the future. Tune.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Han? I mean, I think we've covered him quite heavily, but in the mentor role, does that work for him or does it not?
Well, he's not 100% the mentor, really. I mean, I think that's what Luke's role is going to be in sort of the future. I mean, he sort of hands out weaponry and doesn't explain how to use it particularly.
Yeah.
They're not. I know. Obviously, it's all cut down for time and stuff, but you don't really see him doing that much mentoring. It's more that he's going to deal with them until he can get them off his hands. I mean, he's doing everything he can to sort of get them on a different ship so that he doesn't need to do anything with it.
Yeah, he's sort of he's a mentor in the same way that Obi-Wan was in the first one, as in he does enough to get them going and then steps back a little bit.
I don't know. He's quite nice and protective of Rey and Finn, and he has some really nice bonding time with Rey, and I'm quite sure she's the daughter that he always wanted.
Yeah, this one won't go evil.
No, I don't think she will.
Yeah.
I don't think she will. Do you think that there'll be a moment where she'll be she'll think about it though? Do you think that's what's going to happen?
Could be. Aaron, have you any thoughts on Han that we didn't cover?
I think the only thing that I noticed about his scenes that we didn't cover is that the scene where he turns up is the one where I really noticed for the first time that the whole thing was shot in Britain. At least I assume it was, because of the serious number of British accents out there. You can't help but notice every single time that an American film wants to indicate that someone is a real hard guy. They find can someone get us somebody with a Glasgow accent, please? We need a Glaswegian here. We need a really hard guy, and that because one of the bounty hunters I think comes on, and he's just from Glasgow. That's who he is.
I loved that. I thought it was really funny. I was like, I think it's really funny when you hear a Scottish accent in a really big movie.
Star Wars film.
I really love it. I thought it was great. But isn't no wait, that was something else. Who's that other Scottish guy who's in one of them, and then it was like a son that's also like a fighter pilot or something? That's like a Scottish thing. Or wait, or was that just Ewan McGregor?
That's Wedge.
Ewan McGregor was in it, yeah.
Wedge is like a Scottish actor.
But his uncle was in one of the earlier ones, though, right?
Yeah, he was a fighter pilot, yeah.
Aye. So
Uncle Wedge.
He was a Wedge.
That's what I was thinking of. But no, I quite liked the wee Ouija guy being in it. I thought it was really funny. I thought it was good that they chose that British accent over one of those ones where you've got Vinnie Jones type guy or something like that.
Sort of a Danny Dyer character coming on.
Aye, I was trying to avoid using his name.
It's been emotional.
Aye, so I was trying to think of like that other sort of a like skinhead type ruffian guy. So I quite like that they went with the wee Glasgow guy. I thought it was quite good. But I don't know why, like, I don't know, Scottish accents do sound quite strange in a big movie when they're set against non-Scottish accents, but I did really, really like it. Yeah.
I just really liked that it showed that Han Solo was sort of still hustling and still going out and double crossing, this sort of war hero that, could probably just sit back and not do much anymore. And, he's still out there sort of swindling people and double crossing.
Oh, I don't know. I felt a bit bad that was still happening because it was a bit like
he'd had to go back to his life crime.
That he did. Like he hadn't
probably pawned all his medals.
Yeah. Oh.
It goes back to being the Del Boy of the galaxy.
Yeah. There needs to be more aftercare for fighters. That's what that movie showed.
Leia had a lot less to do than he did. She turns up quite late, and then she has a couple of meetings and talks about her son.
Bitchin' jacket.
Yeah.
A couple of dues in there.
Yeah.
With signature Leia dues.
Yeah, and she feels Han's death as well.
Yeah, she does. Because they're connected.
Just the one thing that everyone else sort of seemed to complain about on the internet. When the Millennium Falcon arrives after Han's death, she goes and gives Rey a cuddle rather than Chewbacca.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Walk by.
Yeah, like lets them just walk off.
But that's them connecting.
Maybe Chewbacca was too upset to hug.
That's it. Yeah, his fur coat was soaking wet with tears.
Yes.
Yeah. And she did have an expensive coat on, so...
She did.
Honestly, I don't think she did what she needed to do. Turn up, be Leia, be in charge of the rebellion, and connect with Han and give some words of wisdom to the new female role, and that was it. I think she was used as what she was needed for, but maybe that was right. Maybe she couldn't take over. Maybe taking over would have actually been a bad thing. So maybe she did what she needed to do, and that was exactly the right choice.
I think there could be some brother-sister stuff in the next film.
Yeah, but also it's just not about the old characters so much anymore. It is about the ones who are going to be leading
handing the baton over to the next generation.
Yeah, so we don't need to really.
If she doesn't kiss Luke on the lips in the next film, though, it's not going to be a proper Star Wars film.
If there's not some random incestuous stuff, let's not have that anymore. Maybe they could finally have that conversation. Remember that stuff that was going on with us before we found this out? Yeah, that's weird.
Even though she knew the whole time, like, creep.
Apparently, yeah.
Utter creep.
You hear about brothers and sisters separated at birth that find each other after all these years and they have an attraction. So,
yeah,
it's probably let's abort this line of conversation. It's going to get weird real fast.
I think that's what I need.
So, onto the story then. Does it work as a story? Or is the start of the story?
Only at the story.
That's excellent.
Wow.
It's,
Wow.
yeah, so the
I
story.
still say that the repeat of the old film's plot, it only become well. I randomly watched it in thirds, this film, just because it was convenient to do so as research for this. The first third, I did not notice the repeats at all. Now they were there because, as you said, characters take the place of characters from the previous films, but I didn't notice. In the second and third, I thought there were a couple of things I noticed, but the real obvious copying, if that's what it was only in the last third. And so, for the most part, for me, I thought that the story was new enough that I wasn't offended by it.
See, I saw the parallels like right away. I mean, you've got this young person on a desert planet who doesn't know they're a part of a bigger story. They find a droid with some information that propels them onto the story, and they come across an old wise mentor that knows what's going on, and then they eventually destroy the Death Star.
But for me, these things are often there when you look for them. But if you are involved in the plot, then it can vanish. And I think for me, when I was watching, I was involved enough that it didn't jump out at me. I was enjoying it enough that I wasn't looking for it. It's the same thing that we've said back on several films, even as far as, even with, say, like the Avengers, we all looked at the Avengers film and thought, oh, God, that was weird. Oh, that was wrong. Oh, how are they talking to each other? And all of these things came out after the fact, though. When you were in it, you were just enjoying it. So I think I could have noticed those things, but the presentation of the film right from the start, the imagery, some of the plot involvements for Rey herself at the start meant that I just wasn't looking for it, and it passed me by, and pleasantly so.
Yeah, it kept sticking out of me.
I think on the first viewing you don't particularly notice it, and I think it's like you were saying at the beginning. It helps you get into the Star Wars story because it is slightly familiar. You know, it helps sort of drag you in. I think it's only on sort of a repeated viewing that you go, oh, that is a bit similar to this. And that's, I mean, I think every time you watch, I end up picking up on other little bits and pieces that are similar. But I don't think it takes away from the film. I don't think it's a major issue in there, because I think it's still a good way of introducing these characters.
Yeah, I think even if
you're old and new together by putting them in a similar situation to what they were in before is actually quite a good mechanic.
Even if you've got your direct parallels, like your cantina scene and the planning the Death Star, Starkiller base assault and everything, that seems to fit directly into the original. The film as a whole serves as a really good vehicle to kind of get back into the Star Wars universe, introduce the new characters who are different enough from the originals, and then kind of hand over the baton and let them kind of carry on the new story. I think hopefully the next couple of films down the line are going to be a bit more original, or the story is going to take a different path than one we've seen in previous trilogies. But I think as a kind of bridging point between the good old ones and hopefully the good new ones, I think this works really well.
I think it's strange that everyone's viewing the almost like repetitive nature of The Force Awakens as a bad thing, but everyone knows history repeats itself, and it's kind of, why are we missing the fact that we're showing that it's almost come full circle again for the story, and it's like almost like another opportunity for them to try and write it or like make it work in a good way. I have
to admit, I wondered if they were doing that on purpose. I wondered if they were almost like the BSG thing, who literally built their story on that idea of history repeating itself by having that as one of their in-universe phrases. So, has anybody seen that online? Has somebody commented and said, no,
that?
It's
Battlestar Galactica.
Everything is Battlestar Galactica. Right. Everything has happened before will happen again. It was one of their mantras, almost religious mantras, that they repeated now and again. And I wondered is that something think the Force is going to bring into itself, that there is, forgive me for the Disney reference, a circle of life, and everything does get repeated.
It moves us all.
It moves us all.
And every time it repeats, Starkiller Base gets slightly bigger and slightly bigger.
Really?
But that was, I thought that was quite jarring. It was like, oh, this was the Death Star, and it shows this tiny little hologram, and it's like, this is Starkiller Base. It's like J.J. Abrams saying, my Death Star is so much bigger, so...
Yeah, but you just want to hate him. That's the reason.
I don't actually want to hate J.J. Abrams. I actually thought he did a good job with the first Star Trek film, and there's a podcast that talks about it.
It's called Starkiller Base. It can't be like this pissy wee thing. Do you know what I mean?
The thing is, in A New Hope, the Death Star was a big part of the story. They spend the bulk of the film on it, so you get an idea of what it is and how important it is, and how there's been nothing like it before. But then Starkiller Base turns up in the last third of the film, really, and then it's not quite clear how it works. It sucks up a sun and then uses that as fuel for its weapon, but does it move on to another sun after it does that, or not?
Yes, it wouldn't be able to do multiple things.
It's in a system with several suns.
Yeah, I don't think we need to focus on that though. I don't think you can't get caught up thinking how specific things work.
Absolutely, because that's what
Yeah.
Star Trek does that. Star Trek puts in the technobabble and it says, we have pseudoscience behind this that makes it real, believe us. Whereas Star Wars never did that. Star Wars is always space opera. It works because it works.
Yeah, you don't need to do it. You can just enjoy it for what it is. And I think you do have to... I think maybe that's hard for Star Trek people when they're watching Star Wars because they want to have it sort of explained to them, but it's not necessary.
I think other aspects of the story are quite helpfully or not explained away, but covered by that approach as well. Where you wonder, didn't they win at the end of Return of the Jedi? Why is there a rebellion again? What's the First Order? What's the New Republic doing? It's possible to wonder about all these things, but the fact that they just kind of sweep past it and you see a lot of destruction going on, it's just you get kind of caught up in the pace of the adventure rather than what they got bogged down with in the prequel trilogy, the kind of politics of it all, which turned out to be pretty stodgy and boring.
Yeah, lots of really, really heavy story.
So much Senate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should go into that level of detail, but I think if you look at the role of the Death Star in A New Hope again, being on it, you get the feeling that this thing moves. It moves from place to place. It's powerful enough to destroy planets. It's the size of a small moon, which is kind of a big deal. But then Starkiller Base, you get none of that. But if you were to do that, would you not then just be doing what you've been moaning about that you didn't like about this and saying that they're just repeating what they've already done? Like, we've already had those scenes. We've already had that sort of experience of exploring the Death Star and trying to find a way around it. There's a wee bit of it where Rey escapes and she's away clambering over the other side of this huge big chasm and stuff in it, but I don't think we need that at all. I mean, they're repeating it anyway. You've got a new Death Star. So.
Yeah, but not to that. But why? What's the point of repeating that amount of time and investment in being on that? On Starkiller Base, it's not necessary for the story. I think what Gus is saying as well, with the previous movies, they have spent too long on certain aspects instead of just moving along with the story. Maybe they'll release a half an hour special commercial of the benefits of Starkiller Base and give you. But I don't think it's necessary, and it's not necessary for the movie. I think. I struggle with the older movies because they are so heavy and so bogged down with political crap, and just because it's happening in space does not make it cool. I think they need to just continue on with what they've got and just keep going with the story, and that's far more engaging and interesting to watch than having a wee scenic tour of how giant Starkiller Base is.
It almost serves as a sort of reboot within the current timeline and canon, which is kind of strange because it's not really something you'd expect to be done before, but I think it introduces all those concepts to potential new fans who might go back and watch the older ones, having not seen them, and think that they're quite slow and boring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in how the First Order came about, and I'm interested in how they managed to build such a whopping big base and sort of hollow out a planet without anyone trying to stop them. You know, it does that. That's the bit that sort of confuses me, the technical aspect of it. You know, just like the Death Star and just like, you know, other things that, you know, you can explain them away in technobabble and they just work. You know, the technology's there and it works. But, you know, I do find it a bit weird that sort of there was a victory in the end, and then that victory was sort of empty because they basically scattered and then reformed into the First Order.
But obviously, like, they're showing us, like, Han and Leia have got a grown-up son. A lot of time has passed. And there's supposed to be mystery and curiosity and intrigue into what has happened and what could have possibly happened in those years between them getting together and having a kid, him growing up and being part of like the dark side and being manipulated by all those people. And I think it's at a really exciting point, I think, where they've had all this time pass and they haven't been stopped because they haven't found Rey, they haven't found Finn, they've not had their main characters. Han Solo's been away swindling Glaswegians and other people, and he's not been interested in this, and he gets interested in it because he finds like new, like fresh meat to work with, and he suddenly has a reason again. It's not new to him that their kid is part of the dark side, but he finds a new reason to go out and try and change what's happening. And I think it's good, and I don't think they need to explain too much how it's happened. We just have to think, like, it's more exciting for us to think, oh my god, like what could possibly have happened, and whatever we imagine it to be is probably going to be better than any backstory they try and tell us, because it's more exciting that way when you think of all the possibilities instead of being told one particular storyline. I
think it's exciting as well that there's some mystery again, where you have to wonder about the Knights of Ren and Snoke and the origins of the First Order. Where, you know, we've just come from a prequel trilogy where you've got Senator Palpatine at the very beginning, and there's absolutely no mystery at all about where he's going to end up. And you know, you're basically watching 3 films knowing the outcome of it. Whereas now we're at the beginning of a whole new sort of set of adventures. A whole new world. We can start to ask questions. Disney.
And what is going to happen with Captain Phasma?
Boba Fett 2.0.
Boba Fett 2.0, yeah, completely ineffectual character behind a mask who does nothing. Yeah.
Are we going to talk about the scene, which is like very much like Nazi Germany? Because that was like the worst scene.
Yeah, well, just before they fire off the weapon for the first time.
Yeah, like when they're all like together and all standing, and they've got that guy, and they've got all the evocative like red and black flags and stuff, and
the Hitler salute.
Yeah, like what was that all about? Where were they? Like, why did they have to do that?
Because like, then you know that they're evil.
Yeah, but I don't know. I found that really cheap, actually, which is funny. Like, I don't know. I don't think that. I think they could have had a more original way of conveying that idea. We already know what they're like.
Why does Hux have to give them a pep talk?
It did seem like a bit of a waste.
They've all been brainwashed into believing what the First Order tells them anyway.
Maybe he just likes to give speeches, and they just let him because he's Tarkin's grandson.
But yeah, no, Gus has got a point though. Like, if they're supposed to be brainwashed and brainwashed, cloney, stormtroopery people, they shouldn't need to have a pep talk because it's already been programmed into them what they're going to have to do. It kind of that jars a lot with me, and I remember feeling quite uncomfortable seeing that scene in the cinema, and I don't know, I was glad when that wee bit was finished, but I just didn't think it was necessary whatsoever.
Yeah, although it has been established that the programming can be broken. You know, Finn is proof of that. So maybe it's something to do with making sure that everyone is still loyal to the First Order.
Yeah, but if
I mean,
they had
I agree
any
with you that
questions,
that scene is horrible and she probably shouldn't have been in it. But I don't know. It is probably just to dial up the threat level of the First Order, even though it really doesn't.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Because you see at the start when Finn is beginning to defect and he gets called in to see whoever that female one is. Who's that?
Captain Phasma.
Yeah, and she calls and says, right, you're going to have to hand in your gun and blah, blah, blah. And they're aware of him because they know that he's not contributed to that killing the village and stuff. But it's like they'd be aware of which ones were defected and they would just get rid of them because they're just like objects to them. Do you know what I mean? Like don't have any meaning, and it's not like they need those extra couple of bodies. They would just get rid of them. So I don't understand still why they would need to have that pep talk.
I think I agree with you. I agree with you that the scene itself was overkill, but if you want to analyze it, I think that there's definitely a difference between brainwashing somebody and then giving them constant reinforcement of that brainwashing and having someone who is so robotic that you can afford to just kill his friends in front of him and he won't question it. They are still humans. They will still look over and go, "Oh, where's Steve? Where's Steve gone? Oh, he's in the he's just been compacted and turned back into soylent green, you know." So
they did it in the older ones, right? And I know that this one they've really made an effort to make it more personable, but like this whole but they're friends. It's not like they have like social playtime.
They might do,
except in like when you watch like the Family Guy versions of Star Wars,
or play the Lego games where you see them in saunas and things.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. No, I don't know. I thought it was weird.
I mean, you could have done it with just a speech in the control room to the people that were in there, rather than having it in front of the masses, in front of the building. You know, if they wanted to scale it down. I mean, when you think of the first firing of the Death Star, you know, they just sort of did it in the observation deck with sort of 4 or 5 people around.
Yeah, I wonder if they just really wanted a sort of like Nazi scene in it, like. Yeah,
the First Order, the film does nothing to really develop them as an organisation, other than that they are evil and for some reason.
We're doing that thing again where I like a movie and then we analyse it and then I don't like it anymore.
You do know what this podcast does, right?
What?
we sit and pick apart films. That's what we do.
Yeah. It's okay, I still like it.
I think it actually says something about the film if we're being so pernickety about this particular scene that actually there isn't that much to complain about overall. You know, if we are looking at a scene that only takes, a few seconds really, or a minute or so.
It's an entire scene though that just completely throws that, as they say, spanner in the works. It just completely jars with everything else that they've done that you. I don't know, it just didn't sit with me well at all. As soon as that scene was there, I don't know, it's that whole thing of feeling disconnected to what you're watching.
I think for me the worst part
respond to it that badly
was that it just kind of undermined or kind of pointed out Hux as being a bit too young for the role, I think, or the character being too young. It never really felt like it fit all that well.
Yeah, I mean, the villain stuff was pretty, was okay at best, I suppose. I think, if I were doing it, I wouldn't have had Starkiller Base in it at all, so that speech wouldn't have existed at all anyway. But I did find Rey's growth as a Force user probably the most interesting plot that went through, because it kind of. Well, I mean, on the posters you saw Finn with a lightsaber and stuff, so the assumption was...
Unless you were in Asia.
Yeah.
In which case he wasn't on the poster at all.
All right. Well, certainly the assumption in the posters I saw was that... Because I only saw the posters, I didn't really see I saw the first trailer, but nothing after that. So I kind of assumed that he would be the Jedi type. So it came as a bit of a surprise when Rey turned out to be the Force-sensitive one.
Well, he's the first one to wield it as well, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's the first non-Jedi that we've seen to use the lightsaber as a weapon, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, did you guys hear about that? Like, China completely removed Finn from the poster, and I think, or they moved him really, really small down into a bottom corner. Mental.
Different catchments and so on. Yeah.
Well, or a bit racist.
That's an issue for a different podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because coming off the prequels where you hear that, Anakin at 9 years old is too old, and then Rey is possibly in her 20s.
No, she'll be like 16 or 17 or something. I don't think she's much older than that. Yeah, I think she's probably like very, very, very similarly aged to Kylo Ren.
No, you never get told how old these people are, do you? In this film, anyway.
No, I think the American system of using actors a lot older than they really are catches you out. I think they are supposed to be late teens as well. It's just that they have to use older actors.
I think that's why we get all those like childish characteristics shining through to really invoke that coming of age type thing and all that stuff.
I mean, she's too old according to Jedi doctrine, isn't she? No matter how old she is.
But she's like a natural. But she's a natural though. Like she doesn't need like. She's got the power within her. She doesn't need to have anything else.
Plus, you'd probably get a lot less picky when there's only one person you can possibly train up,
Yeah, I thought the growth of her abilities was quite interesting. How she rejected it at first when she got that, when she touched the lightsaber and she saw that confusing vision of what had come before and what might come later. I've went through that vision, but I can't figure out what it's supposed to be, which is, I guess, the idea. It might all become clear later on, or it might be even more confusing. Who knows? But I liked her initial rejection of it, and then when she mind tricks Daniel Craig. That was cool.
Yeah, I liked that. I remember being like so excited when she managed to get it to work.
Yeah. And then her first attempt at a lightsaber battle where she's on the run for the most part. Well, she gets the upper hand towards the end.
When the ice and stuff breaks, like that bit, like all the
You love the bit where she force pulls the lightsaber out of the snow into her hand.
Yeah, that whole that fight scene is just great.
It's pretty badass.
Oh,
that's a good moment. Yeah,
loved the fight scene. It wasn't too long either. It was it was really good, and
it's a proper cheer
really
out loud moment. I think.
Yeah. I'm sad that I'm not younger watching it because I feel like could be much more geeky about it.
Well, I feel like Rey might favour a double-edged lightsaber because she has that stick thing that she uses earlier in the film.
Yeah. Well, maybe she'll modify it with the help of someone. Q or someone, I don't know.
Q. Jedi Q.
Particularly her journey, I think you've covered it, if I'm honest.
No, you've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to say.
Sorry.
What were people's thoughts on the ending of the film where she encounters Luke and stands there awkwardly holding out a lightsaber for what feels like an eternity as the camera pans round?
Love it.
Did you not like that, Craig?
Loved it.
I think it would have been better to roll credits as soon as Luke turns around and looks at her, rather than having that long lingering shot, because it just felt weird.
You have to showcase the beauty of Scotland. Isn't
it Ireland?
I think it's Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah, it's
Ireland. It all looks the same.
What?
Whatever. They're on green pastures and surrounded by water.
Loved it. So much water, Craig. You should like it.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, there's a lot of water in that scene, Craig.
With your water fetish.
They aren't in the water though, so you know.
Right. Okay. So that's a different movie. I liked it, and I think it's good because I think having that prolonged moment is good because it leaves us wondering whether Luke is going to accept. You know, he could still be like, "No, I'm not having any part of this," and he keeps us waiting. You know, there's no immediate satisfaction from it, other than when he turns around and he still looks beautiful.
Sweet
I would love if that was the beginning of sort of episode 8, is him turning around and going, "Nah, I'm all right, thanks. You talk."
Such an anticlimax. Yeah. Oh no, yeah, you've got the wrong guy. Luke's on that other giant island
in Ireland, not Scotland.
Not anymore.
Why did I think it was Scotland?
Don't know.
One of the things I really loved about that was the music.
Yes.
I really like the music in this film, and Rey's theme is already a classic for me. I could listen to that over and over again, and I think it's really sort of atmospheric, and it kind of helps build all the emotion as she's climbing the steps towards Luke. Mm-hmm. And I think it's already, for me, become part of the whole sort of Star Wars symphony, where the music from the originals is so well known, and the fanfare and the Force theme as Luke's staring off at the twin suns. You know, it sort of takes me right back to feeling those emotions from all those scenes. And I think that's where the prequels kind of failed, apart from Duel of the Fates, which is an amazing piece. It didn't really have any, you know, it didn't have anything quite like Rey's theme or the Force theme that just hearing a few bars of it just puts you right back into the film. And so when that came back from her, you know, it comes in at the beginning when she's on Jakku, and there's maybe another couple of times in the film, but you know, as that's playing, as she's ascending the stairs towards destiny, I was just like, yes, this is amazing.
Yeah, and I would have been all for that if it wasn't for the awkward lingering. It just, I don't know, it felt like something should have happened, but they're just standing there.
It's not awkward lingering. It's more of like
we're looking into her face as she contemplates her future as a Force user.
Yeah, it's just giving that scene space, and I think maybe we're not used to it because we're so used to having so much action and so much immediate like response to things. And I just think having space for that scene makes it far like more important.
Everything ties back as well, because the music helps you think back to her being a scavenger on Jakku, and she had nothing, and she was, you know, scratching out the number of days she'd been alone, and
waiting for her family to return.
And then there she is, looking into the face of Luke Skywalker, and he's staring back, and there's so much emotion on his face as well, everything that he's been through. And we're going to find out all about what happened with Kylo Ren.
Is he her father?
Has to be.
It's so brilliant. How can you say you don't like that scene? It's so... Like,
I'm not saying I don't like it. I just don't like the end of it. It's that long...
That's part of it. You can't separate that part where, you know, they're moving around the characters and they're not doing anything. You can't separate that part from her approaching him. It's all part of it. You can't break it down as far as that. It's not fair for the scene, and it's not fair for the story to do that and to view it like that. Sorry, feel a bit passionate about it.
As a slight sidebar, has anybody seen the Very Lonely Luke Twitter account, where it's like Luke Skywalker standing on the top of this hill or mountain and just contemplating things? It's just someone who's writing random thoughts that he might have. It's so funny.
Oh, I'll have a look at it.
There's one 24th of November. Today I'm thankful for my family and that I never have to see them.
That's not fair. I'm sure he's gonna love being a dad. Wait, what if it's not like? What if they've totally like misled us?
If they've hit you with the old switcheroo.
Yeah, what if she's actually like the sister of Kylo Ren? What if she's actually like Leia's daughter from a different sort of bad relationship? Oh my god, what if like Leia did like some other stuff with someone before she then had a baby with like... Oh, that wouldn't make sense. She would have had to have had the bear.
If you want the parallels, then she has to be a hidden sister, just like Leia was a hidden sister, which would make her Leia's child. I think that's and Luke's daughter are the only two options that are really strong. I probably could go either way, actually. No, I've said it definitely.
Well, Daisy Ridley does have a certain Natalie Portman-esque quality to her, just to look at her.
A lot of
So it seems like she might have Skywalker DNA somewhere.
I think it'll be. I just feel like now that I've said that out loud, though, it's going to be something else. And
there's a weird theory that she was conceived by. I don't want to say those words because it's kind of a swear word, but she was conceived in the same way Anakin was, and therefore she is now the prophesized chosen one. I read that one. I don't really agree with it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they went down that route.
So yeah,
I don't know if they'll reference very much that happened in the prequels.
The further away they go from them, I think the better they are.
Yeah. But you never know, because remember, a large part of the audience of this film will have only seen the prequels, maybe.
And there would be an interesting perspective to have on these new ones, but it felt more like what Angus was saying, that we're trying to rewrite the theme of Star Wars in the people's heads that have only seen those ones and saying, no, that's not what it was. This is what it was. And if that is what they're trying to do, then going back to the old stuff would undermine that.
Yeah. I don't know when answers will be forthcoming. I suppose in the next one, although maybe Luke will just be a bit of a twat about it and just not decide not to tell her, or he'll tell her the truth from a certain point of view.
Well, again, if they want the parallel, then they'll do the Yoda thing and not tell him, because it's part of his journey to find and overcome that, and the surprise is almost part of the challenge.
Yeah.
I think that's the bit, actually, what I think about the repeats is the one thing that I'm wary of and hope they don't do. Because I'm not bothered about this circle of going back on themselves and revisiting some of this past. But I think if Episode 8 is going to be a lost master trains a new person on a water-filled planet, then this repeating will be too much for me. So far I've not noticed, but now I have noticed because we've gotten to the end of Episode 7. Episode 8, I'm going to be looking for it all the time.
Yeah, it's where they go next is an interesting question. And, what do people think will happen next?
I almost don't want to speculate, because I hope that they don't, like Aaron said, I hope that they just kind of cast off from what's come before and kind of go out onto a new narrative rather than relying too heavily on previous sort of stories we've seen.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for a surprise to be. That's my hope, for it not to be familiar or not to be predictable. I mean, they're definitely doing the right thing by doing these sort of gaps, these 2-year gaps. Obviously, they've got to do it for production in the first place. But the fact that you're still getting a Star Wars story, but it's a Han Solo movie, or it's going off on a different, it's a Finding the Plans to the Death Star movie that are going in between, I think sort of helps in a little way. But as long as it's not predictable, as long as it doesn't sort of copy along the same lines, I think it'll be all right.
Yeah. I don't really want another training movie where, there's the suggestion that Rey is tempted by the dark side and then she runs off to fight Kylo Ren even though she's told she shouldn't, and things like that. And I'd like to see them do something very different in the next one. Because there are some interesting hints there. Where did Rey come from? Whose daughter is she? Who's she related to? Where did she fit in on all this? There's the whole Knights of Ren stuff that might be interesting. Just how big is Snoke is another one. And at the moment, by themselves, they're not that interesting at the moment, but there's any number of ways they could go with it, with any of it.
Will we ever see an Ewok again?
I goddamn hope so.
Yeah.
Mounted on the wall as a hunting trophy.
Oh my god, Chris!
Next to Jawa.
No.
Scottish Jedi with an Ewok head as a spawn.
Oh.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Jedi
This
robes.
is not advocating in any
Jedi robes made out of
form
Ewok.
or Ewoks.
Yeah.
Do not hunt Ewoks, only mount the dead ones that you find by the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, any other theories from anyone?
Like in general.
Yeah, but well, about these series of films.
Well, the fact that Snoke is kind of looks pretty old and battered, and makes you, I've seen a few theories about who he could be.
Wait, it's not the
Plagueis and things
hologram.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't really want it to, unless it's like a really surprising reveal. I don't mean in terms of like being a Jar Jar or something.
It's their granddad.
I just hope that it works out well, and it's not like a kind of disappointment when the reveal eventually comes.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one because he's already kind of a nothing so far. So what can they do to him that makes him more interesting?
I mean, he must have been in a position before for him to somehow manage to pull together all the remnant bits of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
He must have
And he
been in
talks
some
about
sort
an
of
awakening
position of,
as well.
he must have been in some position of power in the first place to be able to sort of get the influence enough to pull all these bits and pieces back together.
Yep. Yeah, so
He'll
be a tough one. I think he'll be the toughest one to pull off. I guess we'll find out, next year?
When's the next one out?
Next Christmas. Episode 8 is next Christmas.
That's
Rogue One
ages
is-
away.
We'll just have to make do with Rogue One.
Anyway, the music is absolutely bitchin'.
So something was sort of touched on, but haven't really dealt with in detail. Like Star Wars is always well known for its action sequences. So how does this film do in executing interesting action sequences?
I really enjoyed them. I'm trying to think of when they all were
Good dogfighting, X-Wing TIE Fighter.
good dogs.
I think the first Millennium Falcon scene is a standout one for me. That was tremendous. Like, where they fly for the first time, and even the little detail of when they're fighting. Are they going against two TIE fighters and they destroy one of the TIE fighters, and then a bunch of scavengers run out from the desert and start grabbing bits of live hot TIE fighter.
Yeah. And the gun that Finn is manning gets damaged. So they have to line up and aim. Well, I don't know why he doesn't just use the other one.
Gus is mocking me right now because I didn't know that dogfight meant something in the sky.
Or in space.
I think the dogfighting's great. I think that first scene with the Millennium Falcon, that the junk will do, I think is just brilliant.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it, and when there's that reveal, it just was brilliant. The sort of surprise of that, the big sort of battle at the end, the sort of dogfighting and the scenes there, I thought were good. But the sort of fight scenes and everything were really well done, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed them.
It's tricky for them to do the sort of ground battle at Mazzy's place as well. Sort of big epic scenes of destruction there.
Yeah, I absolutely loved the stormtrooper that calls Finn a traitor and then seems really angry and goes after him. That was a much more developed character than Captain Phasma ever was in this film, just for that one moment, because he actually does something.
I wondered why that wasn't Phasma. Wouldn't you have been down there on the ground assault? But I suppose it's someone that needed to be blown out the way and shot quickly on, yeah?
Yeah. They could have got him out of it in some other way. Who knows? But yeah, in theory, that could have been Phasma, because that's a far more interesting thing, and It's just the way he yells "traitor" at Finn, and then and takes him on. It was really cool. My personal favourite scene or action scene is the TIE fighter escape. I just think that's, it's got the great character interactions, and it's really fast paced and really like kinetic, and although it kind of ends a bit abruptly, and then you have the question of how did Poe survive for the next hour or something like that after the crash.
Yeah, what was it? Like he got rescued or something?
I think they just meant, there's one line about it, but I don't know what it was. I thought he was dead.
He's still free. He threw his jacket back on the burning carcass of whatever plane thing they were in.
But yeah, I thought that was a great sequence. It's just, I don't know, it was one of those, because it's one of the early ones, so it feels like everything the prequel got wrong about action sequences put right, if you know what I mean.
In a similar way to the lightsaber battle being more grounded and a bit more like the original trilogy than using force jumps and flipping all over the place.
Yeah, although I never really had a problem with Jedi at the top of their game using their, abilities and skills in unison. But yeah, but the whole, the whole weight behind the lightsaber battle was good. And like I said before, when Rey was pretty much on the defensive until she trusted her instincts. I thought the new trench run was a bit of a mess.
Trench run?
Yeah, where Poe flies down the new Death Star trench, and it's kind of a repeat of the old Death Star trench run, but it feels a bit kind of, I don't know, it feels messy to me. I
thought it was good sort of seeing it not go to plan. They've sort of sat there and they thought, oh, we'll just go there and we'll do a bombing run on it and that'll be it. Yeah, I think seeing that the plan was flawed, it didn't work the way they said it was. They didn't have plans that were sort of detailed enough that they could look for that tiny little flaw in there. It was you've got to destroy this entire complex to make it work. The sort of final bit of them flying inside the building, I did kind of think, oh well, the thing would probably be destroyed at some point, but no, I thought it was all right. Really, it was a means to an end.
Yeah, and it begs the question of what they can do next with all these big action set pieces. I mean, I suppose they've got an unlimited budget these days, so they could just come up with all this outlandish stuff. But yeah, any more on the action, or perhaps your favourite mystery that's established in this film?
I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a lot of the sort of more mysterious elements of the plot and what we kind of hope might come from them. Unless anyone else has anything.
I just want to know where Jar Jar is in all this.
Not appearing in this film.
He hasn't been seen since the Emperor's statue was toppled on Coruscant in the special edition.
I'll just go with my previous answer, go mounted on the wall as a hunting trophy.
Oh!
Kylo Ren has him mounted on the wall as a hunting trophy. Well, has anybody seen the theory where he's actually a huge Sith Lord?
I spent far too long reading the whole series.
I don't know. It's kind of
I committed so much time to reading that theory that in the end I was like, well, that could actually be true. just so that I hadn't wasted my time reading it, I thought at the end of this I better believe it.
It makes sense. It's the only way this character makes sense. Please let it be. Yeah. Maybe he's Snoke. Oh God, we've said too much. So, I guess on that note, it's probably a good point to wrap up. So, what are final thoughts on Star Wars as an entity based on this film, as in is back, and how do people feel about the annual entries that are going to be coming? Feel like you'll enjoy them for all time or get sick of them eventually?
I'm glad it's back. I'm glad it's going to be a continuing franchise. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the little side films that they've got. I think the sort of continuation of the trilogy is going to be great, but I'm interested to see where they go with the little sort of side films, the origin films. I mean, I don't normally look forward to origin stories, but I think the Han Solo one could be interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them all. I'm going to be right there at the box office.
I really like The Force Awakens. I recognise that there's elements of it that are very similar to parts of the original trilogy. They've obviously taken the best bits, tried to kind of reboot while continuing the saga. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the side movies as well. I really like what I've seen in the trailers so far, and it looks like they're going in the right direction. At the moment, I'm quite happy to have one a year. Although, again, as a skeptic, I think that there might be a oversaturation at some point. But for now, for the next few years anyway, I can see myself looking forward to any and all Star Wars content.
I think I'm more interested in the Star Wars universe than I am actually in the Marvel or DC universes existing, just because of the potential to intertwine the plots a lot more and have it be a lot more meaningful without having to break out into other things. I think things like Rogue One allow you to explore another angle of something you already know, and somehow that seems more interesting. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. If I had to choose sort of a kneel before or rise against in that simple thing for The Force Awakens, I would definitely go kneel before, because it's got enough in it that I really enjoyed it despite anything I might challenge. So far, I would say this is everything I hoped that the films 1 to 3 were, and then subsequently weren't. I think they've really recovered well.
I really enjoyed it still, and I'm really excited for the next one to come out. Having the whole one a year might be good as like a wee taster for getting back to the main story. But I'm not that fussed about them. Just because things like they do things like the Clone Wars and like that, and so I'm a bit like, I guess we'll find out if it's like a proper movie or a wee bit of a fodder to fill a gap. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to see more, and I'm definitely intrigued to find out more about the story. But definitely enjoying it.
Yeah, for me, in terms of this film, I liked it but didn't love it as much as some people clearly do. I think it's a good start, and it could have been a lot worse. So there's that. I'm more interested to see more of it because certainly I think the next film's directed by a really interesting director, Rian Johnson, who did Looper, which is one of the more interesting sci-fi films of the past few years. In terms of the side films, I'm really not that interested in Han Solo's origin story because just not that bothered. But Rogue One intrigues me enough to want to know how it plays out. I'm just a bit off-put by the fact it's directed by the guy that did Godzilla, and that was not very good. So it could go either way for me at this point. I haven't seen a single trailer, so I'm basing that entirely on my opinion of that guy's last film. So maybe Disney will have reined him in and got him to do something good. Yeah, it's good to have good Star Wars again, and I think it complements Rebels, which is a cartoon that I really like.
Yep, and I'm going to sit you down and force you to watch a loop of Rey staring into Luke Skywalker's eyes with Rey's theme playing in the background until you learn to love it.
But that will be like Clockwork Orange style stuff. I won't actually love it.
You will.
You will.
You will.
And then on my very first mission, I'll betray
You will be. You will be.
And then, yeah, as soon as I go on my very first mission, I will betray you, and that'll be it.
And then we'll film it, and it'll start all over again.
So that's it. So we've covered The Force Awakens in some detail, as we like to do. So thank you for everyone and joining me in this first part of the saga that we will no doubt continue over the next few films.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I bid everyone good night and good force. There's a new catchphrase.
Good night and good
Have a good force.
Have a good force.
Merry force to you all.
Happy Life Day for everyone in a month. The Star Wars Holiday Special. One day we'll talk about that.
We will never talk about that.
Caravan of Courage for life.
Yeah.
Out.
So thank you all, and good night.
Cheers. Good night.
Wait, is that you actually saying bye?
I am.
Okay, bye.
So, that was our discussion on The Force Awakens. We hope you enjoyed it and it made you think, about something at least. Thanks to YouTubers Stratario and Ensigns1117 for providing the music. If you liked what you heard, then you can find us on iTunes, YouTube, or any major podcasting app. Please join us in the next Kneel Before Pod, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.